I think this idea of the difference between fitting in somewhere and belonging somewhere, I think that seems to be the message that resonated the most when I was doing my stint on the stage, so to speak. And I think the fact that as organisations we focus so much on assessing people for cultural fit that we forget actually that we should be more focused on how we can make them belong. So I think that's probably message number one. Second message is just this idea of how can we help people thrive within our businesses, whereas sometimes we're guilty of thinking about survival. So who will survive in our business? Who can cut it? Who can cope with the madness? Rather than who is going to do a great job, and then how can we help them be even better? And then my third message is probably not to underestimate the people's personal journeys with this idea of belonging and fit. And quite a few people came up to me at the end and just spoke about how they feel that with experience and probably as they've progressed in their career and probably got a little bit older, this idea of belonging means more to them than it probably did when they first started out at work, and it caused people to kind of reflect on their professional career, which I think is always a good thing. So that's kind of my 3 things. What I said is if I belong somewhere, it's because I really want to be here and you really want me to be here. To fit in means I really want to be here, but you're not that bothered. So, you know, if I turn up, it's like, great. If I don't turn up, all right, fine, I'll still keep going on. And to belong somewhere means that I'm accepted for me, but fitting in potentially means that I am accepted for being like everybody else. So this idea that we change who we are to fit our environment. It's not about adaptation or being flexible. It's just we change who we are and maybe we suppress some of the things that make us us with a view of thinking that actually that's what we need to kind of survive and be successful in an organisation, but that's not belonging. For me, the most effective way for me to convey to them that they're part of my team and that they belong is just appreciating their differences, letting them be themselves, and for me that is letting them have views that are different from each other, are different from mine, but also me to lead that too. So for them to be really clear, even if they don't agree, on what my views are on all sorts of things, and it doesn't have to be stuff that's connected with work, and we can have those conversations, we can disagree, but I am not forcing them to fall in line. I'm not trying to engineer the conversations to get to a point where we all agree. And I think that's probably the difference for me. So when you're celebrating diversity, you're allowing people to have their different viewpoints and different ideas, and you're not trying to funnel them into a consensus to make it pass through. That's the most effective way I think it could work. For me, diversity is about people's backgrounds, and it could be their religion, it could be their gender, it could be their ethnicity, it could be all of those things, and that is part of it. But for me, we should focus more on inclusion. So you can have all those diverse people and you can hit your quotas and you can go and get them from all 4 corners of the world, which is great. But then how do you make them feel welcome when they reach your organisation? And then how do you enable them to still grow and develop? And then how do you enable that diversity to still manifest itself in decision making as you go right the way through the organisation? And I think that's the bit that we're probably not as great at, because we are just focused on a numbers game a little bit. So yeah, it's background, but I would more want the conversation to move towards inclusion rather than just diversity. The future of work for me, I think, is employees will exercise more choice, is the answer. I think they will be less tolerant of some things we've probably taken for granted. So they will want to be inspired by leadership. They will want to buy into a vision of the organisation that they work for. They want to be able to feel that they can be themselves and still progress and still remain themselves. They can still grow and develop, but the core part of who they are is not going to change. And I think if we are too passive and just assume that everybody should be grateful to come and work for us, they will go, okay, fine, I'll go somewhere else. They will not be tied into a job that they don't enjoy. They will not be tied into a job where they are not inspired by the leadership. So I think we might be quite surprised at the fact that, you know, we may offer people to come and work for us and actually go, no, it's not for me. So I think that probably is going to be is going to be a change. It's massively important for people to feel trusted, because that's that whole bit about value. And that's that bit that says, actually, if I turn up, I'm appreciated and my ideas count and my contributions matter. And if I'm not around, I will be missed. So actually you need to trust people to enable them to keep taking risks for you, which hopefully means you will be a more successful organisation. But if they don't feel like they're trusted, then they start to question whether or not there's a place for them in your organisation. And the second they start thinking that is almost the point that you've lost them. So trust is massively important. I would hope the message that people have walked away with from my talk is just the fact that I'm quite open and honest with my personal journey about belonging and what I thought was belonging versus actually what was this idea of fit. I've been in HR for 14 years, and I started off being in a place where I was different because of the colour of my skin, and I just wanted to fit in. So that was the important driver for me. And then as I've got older, that's not the right way to go. But there's so many of us that will have a story about what they've done and what experiences they've gone through to fit in, and then realise actually that hasn't made them any happier, it hasn't made them any more successful at work. Belonging and feeling valued and feeling like you're part of something, that you contribute to something, is actually more important. So I would want people to walk away and reflect on that, even from a personal, individual level.